who are coming in just now, you didn't hear my little 5-minute announcement. Ask the person next to you to clue you in on my 5-minute announcement. I don't want to say it live in front of people because then people will be like, what's she doing? Anyway, hello. We are broadcasting live from, oh yeah, you can see it, from Illinois, Chicago, home of the Hawks, we would like to say. If any of you are in Canada, we know you haven't won a Stanley Cup since 1994 or 1998 or something. But we are not going to talk about that. Anyway, so we're going to be talking about digital literacy and critical thinking in the web and what that means for digital literacy in terms of searching and validating and finding out information. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, am I there? I didn't do it. Share my screen. And let's see. I think we're going to go the entire screen. Tell me if it looks okay, Wendy. And Wendy, can you see what I'm doing, the presentation?
Yep, awesome. Hi, everyone in the room. Thanks for letting us peek in. We have 60 folks from around the world who signed up to watch this, and you can watch this session later on our YouTube and Hangout channel. So, hi, everyone.
So these people are in the wrong room. I'm going to actually put this so we can hear Wendy. We couldn't hear you, but they know what's happening. So Wendy, can you talk one more time?
Hi, everyone.
Okay. Super loud. So a couple people were in the wrong place. So we are going to start. You can get to this website or this presentation, and once you get to it in Google Drive, it'll be there. So if you need to go back or you want to do it with your school, you can get there by going to, as soon as this stops, going to bit.ly/digital thinking. And this is really about kind of a combination of search and validation and making sure that your kids are information literate. And all the stuff that I did to do this session, I actually did in River Forest, Illinois, because I used to live in Chicago for 10 years. But 5 years ago, it snowed 55 inches in January and 55 inches again in February, and I took off for San Diego. I have never looked back. But most of the stories I'm going to tell even tomorrow in my keynote are all Chicago-based stuff, but I may actually have to move back. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. Sorry, no disrespect. I just love San Diego, and I also spent some time in Portland, Oregon, which I am now enjoying too. So if you want to know how to search and you're not going to get to a search session, I put this little doc up. There are 11 Google tricks that will change the way you search and the way your students search. One of the things that I find is that a lot of teachers are not really literate on search. So when they take kids to a computer lab or they have computers in front of them, they say, go find out some information about whatever, and they don't teach them how to effectively find that information. So we're going to talk about that. We know that the information landscape has changed dramatically. And so finding information today is really important, but not just finding, validating. And I don't know how this YouTube's going to work when we're live streaming, but this is kind of where life has come.
Honey, what are you doing? We gotta go. It's dressed like a president day. It's supposed to be Martin Van Buren. Who? Martin Van Buren. Google Martin Van Buren.
Now, my mother could have never done that, right? She would have been like, Martin Van Buren, where's the encyclopedia? Oh, we don't have the B's, so what are we going to do? Or do you have your textbook so I can look at a picture? But life has changed, and we all know that. But it makes a cute little way to remember that we have access to so much information. And what's really incredible is every student in school right now was not born BG. Did I say that right? Or was born BG? No, it was not born BG. And BG means before Google. So they only know life with Google. So when we have them in a classroom and we're not accessing and giving them access to answer questions and get information, they're kind of in awe that we're not using it the way we should be. I'm in awe when someone says, "Hey, when did Sarah Evans sing that song?" and I look it up, and I'm like, "Oh, that was 1998." I'm always like, "That's so cool that we can look that up." Because in my lifetime, you couldn't look that up. But to kids, they're in awe that we're not looking stuff up like that. That we're asking questions like, "Please memorize all 50 state capitals." They're like, "Why would I do that?" Now, I personally am in love with the state capitals. I taught them. I can tell you every single one. I will have songs. We did raps. It's my jam. But do kids really need to know that now? Something for you to decide. So these kids have been doing stuff a little differently. When I first started in the technology game, we used to have something we called the digital divide. And the digital divide was the people who had access and had computers versus those who didn't. We still have that divide, certainly, but it's shrinking and it's being morphed into a different definition of what the divide is. The divide now seems to be about those who can think about search versus those who go and ask Google a question. If your students are walking up to a machine and asking Google a question, you're not preparing them for 2020, which is only 5 years away. What about the idea that those students who can validate information versus those who can't? And we're going to go through some stories today, some stuff that I've done here, right here in Chicago, that I'm extraordinarily embarrassed about because I didn't teach my kids how to validate. And the next one, those who can think about where to find information in new hot channels versus those who can't. If you are still sitting down to a computer and typing in Civil War lesson plan, you are becoming illiterate in 2015. What you should be able to do, if you are technology and digitally literate, is you should be having that information come to you via things like Twitter and hashtags and blogs that you follow. So like if you're a kindergarten teacher, you should know that Matt Gomez is one of the best kindergarten teachers there is, and you should be following his blog, and he should be on one of the mainstreams of people that you follow, so that Matt Gomez is bringing you ideas for your kindergarten class every day. If you're a social studies teacher, you should be following the hashtag social studies. I don't know what it is. I was a social studies teacher, but I didn't do Twitter back then. Anyway, something like that. Fourth chat if you're a fourth grade teacher. Ing chat if you're an English teacher. So stuff should be coming to you 5 minutes a day instead of you searching. Because when you do lesson plan, like Civil War lesson plan, you don't know if that teacher's any good, but you know Matt Gomez is good. So that's the kind of information literacy that we need to be focusing in on in 2015. Hey, Wendy, can you hear me?
Sure can. These are awesome. Thanks so much.
Okay, sorry. She had to probably unmute herself. So all of those ideas didn't come from me. I wish I were that smart. Came from Helen Flowers, who now works, this is old, I couldn't find one of her new ones, but she works in New York City. And she's working with digital literacy through the library, which I think is really smart. So here's what we know about technology integration as we get started. When people get devices in their classrooms or people take kids to the computer lab, they do 3 things. They do 3 things with kids. They have them type a paper. They have them do internet searching with absolutely no guidance on the searching. And they have them play games like cool math games or Shepherd software where you're going to do the capitals. I'm totally guilty of all of that. More guilty than you know, because I had a one-to-one environment from the year 2000 to now. So I have played some Shepherd software. I have played some cool, fun math games or whatever. But now that we've had the devices for a while, we need to rethink how we're using them and how we're having the kids get to that. Since information overloads a way of life, what do we do now? I'm going to actually skip this because it's in my keynote tomorrow, so you could see it there. So here's what they told us, well, not they, Dan Russell, the guru of search, did a little thing where he's told that 3 out of 4 students couldn't perform a well-executed Google search. Do you know what that is for teachers? 3.5. 3.5 teachers can't do it. So how are you going to teach it if you don't know how to do it? So that's what we're going to focus in on today is some of those. You know how we have shared vocabulary for, let's say, language arts, maybe the 6 writing traits, 6 plus 1, there's probably 6 plus 3 by now. We have this shared vocabulary, but we don't have it for digital literacy or searching. And it's something that I tried to implement at the schools I worked with. So I'm going to talk to you about that journey. So we're going to try it. You guys ready? So if you have your devices or your phone or whatever, I need you to listen to these instructions because most people do this thing wrong. You're going to do a search in a moment, but you're not going to actually press like enter and search. You're just going to put the search in the search bar, and then you're going to stop and we're going to copy and paste that, and we're going to put it into something and see how good of a searcher you are. I recently did this with a room this size of librarians in St. Louis, who when I came in to teach them about digital literacy had one eyebrow up the whole time I walked in, like, who are you? I'm a librarian. And then I did this with them, and none of them could do it right. And then the eyebrows went down and they listened. So, well, maybe like one got close. That one probably, she's watching right now, but excuse me. No. So here's what I want you to do. In the Google search bar, and I only want you to stop there, I want you to go to pretend that I'm your teacher, and this is what I want you to search. So you know how at the end of the school day, the bell rings, and you're like, oh yeah, you have homework, don't forget, and you're yelling as they're walking out, not listening. So kind of think of this as that, like, I want you to do search, but I'm not giving you a ton of information. You're running out the door. So New York's Times, I want you to find something from New York Times articles that is about test scores in college, but not the SATs, written between 2008 and 2010. What would you search? Now I'm going to switch over to Google and show you what I'm expecting kind of that you would do. And I hope that this shows. Wendy, let me know if it doesn't show. I'm just going to go to google.com, and here's where I would put in New York Times or whatever. And here is what I want you to copy and paste, whatever it is you put in here. Now I'm going to put this back up so you can see what that was. So New York Times articles about test scores in college, but not the SATs, written between 2008 and 2010. So we're going to do my favorite tool, Socrative. How many of you are using Socrative in your class? That's good. Good. It's my favorite tool. If I could have Chromebooks and one tool, this would be the one for me. So I'm going to log in and I'm going to find out from you what you did. So you're going to copy and paste. You're going to copy it and then you're going to paste it into here. So on another tab, so we're going to get really tabby right now. You're going to go to Socrative.com and enter as a student. Once you enter as a student, you go to my room, which is Holly 1234. And when you get there, I want you to copy and paste into, oh, you know, I don't need your name. It's going to ask for your name. So go ahead and put your name. Then copy and paste your search query term and put it into Socrative. This takes some digital literacy of its own. See how digitally literate you are. Look it, I have 2 people who are rock stars already. Love it. I love coming to Illinois. I can tell you so far, nobody has it exactly correct. Socrative. Socrative. If someone wins this, and someone is going to, that's why I showed the names, you win a Google. Pretty good in here, actually. I love it when people are starting to catch up. Hopefully my next slide didn't have the answer. So I love that someone put New York Times standardized testing because that's what my students would do. They would make something up because I never asked a thing about standardized tests. You know what I mean? But they heard that because they're running out the door. But I guess they are standardized tests. So, by the way, so you know, if you haven't used Socrative, I can look here. I have 22 answers, and I have 27 people in the room. So I know I need to wait for about 5 more people. I have seen a couple. There's one person, there may be more than one, who got it right. And there are a couple people who have come very close. And the person who I could see got it right I need to show names. Matt, where are you? Nicely done. You have it correct. And maybe some other people do as well. So let's look at the answer. It was later on in the thing. It was right next to it. So you could have cheated. Usually I move that to the bottom so that they don't score all the way to the bottom. So it would have been a lot easier to cheat on this one, but here's how this should look. This is how your students should be searching. It should say site : which says to Google, in this site after the colon, New York Times, I want something. Google says, okay, what do you want? Then it says tilde college. Well, tilde is no longer needed. Tilde was a symbol for synonym, any synonym for college, but Google is now written in their code. Every word will ask for a synonym of that word. So you don't have to do that anymore. Test score says, I want pages that have test and score next to them. And only those pages should come up because otherwise, any page that had, hey, I took a test this week and my friends scored higher than me in a basketball game, those pages will come in your results if you don't put quotes around it. Next, minus, and it has to be right next to the S, minus SAT says, but not SATs. Take that out of my search. And then 2 dots means the range, 2008 to 2010. Do you think your students could do that? Or would? The one thing I have found with my students is they will do this over going to advanced search tools. You know the advanced thing? And they have to go in and fill all that out. I'm here to tell you, after 10 or 15 years of having computers in my classroom, students will not do that advanced search thing. You could teach them all you want, but they'll do this because they think it's cool because they're speaking Google. So we're going to try it. Oh, I can't do this. We're Chicago. I do this with everyone else all over the world. You guys will know this already. So I have to come up with something else, which I'm going to have to do on the top of my head. But this is what I do, by the way, for everyone else. I tell them, well, try it with me. Just put in Chicago Fire into your thing. So we all know what I'm asking for. But people in San Diego, California don't know that in October of 1871, there was a great fire that burned through the city. So when they do Chicago Fire, what comes up? Soccer. What else comes up? TV show. But to a kid in 7th grade in San Diego, California, that's probably what they think. But they know their teacher, who teaches social studies, is asking about Chicago. So we go through and we do this special thing on how to search. So we're not going to be able to do that challenge, which is going to get us to no one can hear that over there. So what we do is this. My students, and this used to be, and I'm talking in 2007 in River Forest, I had a really good librarian who was really open about stuff, but there were other people who were not into this. I had my students go to Wikipedia. In 2007, that was like cursing. You kids cannot go to Wikipedia. That is crazy. Now people are over that pretty much. Not everyone, right? So my students with Chicago Fire would type in Chicago Fire, and one of the top results would be from, they would know not soccer because Ms. Clark doesn't really care about soccer. They'd go to Wikipedia, but this says soccer club, so they can't go to that. And look, nothing comes up hardly about Chicago Fire, right? So I'm going to put in, oh, it went soccer automatically. You guys should have told me. You're being too nice. So they know to go here. And my students go to Wikipedia and they look for what was the Chicago Fire. Well, they see there's another word missing, grape. So they're going to take Great Chicago and Fire and put it in quotes. That's going to stop all the other madness. But they're also going to say, let me get a little bit fancier with my searching. Let me add in 1871. Now, we all know in Chicago, I have to sing a little song for everyone else, which is you're so lucky that I don't have to sing the song. But we all know that the cow kicked it over, or that's a thing. So my kids now would read on a little bit about the cow and put minus cow. So this is what a search could look like for a kid who's digitally literate. They might do the Great Chicago Fire. I don't need great. I mean, the 1871. We don't really need plus as long as we put it there. Google knows we mean give me 1871 minus cow. Is there anything else we should minus? Might still get soccer, so let's just do a minus soccer. And you know what? I don't think my soccer was next to it, so it has to be right next to it. Let me redo it. Now look at the results. From soccer, and NBC TV show, my students have everything they need. Amazon, they might want to take out minus Amazon, but that could be an okay book. So now all the results are pretty good. And there's only 344,000, which is good. Because if I just did Chicago Fire, watch, let me go back. There's 70 million. So that's why I call it, I don't know if you saw it a minute ago, how low can you go? So I put on the Limbo song and my students, and we practice searching on how low can you go? How can you get a low number, but really good results? And I call that speaking Google. So my students in San Diego go to a Jewish academy, and they're not my students anymore. I keep thinking that they are. But I tell them they're going to learn 3 languages while they're with me. They're going to learn Hebrew, English, and Google. And how do they do that? That's the next step. This is the part that every school should be including someday. We'll all have this. So my kids learn to speak Google in kindergarten. My kindergartners are there with Chromebooks. We were trying something out. My kindergartners have iPads. Tablets work better in that age environment. But at starting second semester kindergarten, if they're going to do any kind of searching, we start with keyword, just one keyword. First and second grade, we move into adding the quotes. Then when we get 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, we add something until a student who's a senior at my school is doing a search like the one we just did every single time you walk by. That's digital literacy. Students should be able to effectively search, and we should have a shared vocabulary about searching that is throughout schools, especially if you teach English. So now that my students can find information, that's great. Is it over? I would like to say, heck no. It's hot in here. Is that hot in here? It's really hot. So how many of you have heard of Alan November? 1, 2 people? You need to know about Alan November. So Alan November has this book called Web Literacy that was written a long time ago. And but stuff that's in it is still super, super valid today. And he has kids, when they get to a website, they have to do this in order to validate the information. They have to go through and read the URL, examine the content, ask about the author, and look at the links. I now do this. I have students, if they are going to give me something in a works cited, they have to fill out a Google form saying, I checked this, I examined the URL, here's what I found. I examined the content, here's what I found. I asked about the author, here's what I found. And if they can answer all 4 of these, then they can use it as a resource. But not until they've gone through every site that they're going to use with this eye. Now, you might have heard of this example. This happened to me right here in River Forest. I was doing a report, and my students, I taught 8th grade history. This is 8th grade, yes, this was 8th grade. And we were doing something on Martin Luther King. Have you seen this? So I didn't used to do this reel because I was like, it was 2004. And my students would be doing research, and they would do Martin Luther King Jr. They would look it up, and here's what would come up. This, I took a screenshot in 2012, maybe. This one right here, and I'm sorry, let me hide this thing so you can see it. This used to be the first one that came up. I can't hide it. Down here, Martin Luther King. This is a bummer. Let me see if I can move this up. Ugh. But you can't see it because of that stop sharing or whatever. And I tried to hide it and it wouldn't happen. But underneath it says martinlutherking.org. So do you remember that first thing was read the URL? They read .org, and in 2005 they were like, .org. Remember how we all used to think .org was cool? And only for people who were organizations? We don't think that anymore, but we used to, and some people still do. So my kids would go, oh, that's a good one. I'm going to go to the .org, because I thought I was teaching them well about .orgs. So they would get here. And my students, 8th graders, saw one thing and one thing only. Do you know what it is? Rap lyrics. There are rap lyrics on this site, and this is the site for us. And so whatever's on here, I don't care, because somewhere inside of this site, there's going to be some rap lyrics about Martin Luther King, and I love this site. So my first 3 years of teaching, kids turned in this site as their works cited for years and years. And I remember looking at it going, that must be a cool site, everyone, because I didn't have time. I was a bad teacher sometimes. I didn't have time always to look at the works cited of every kid of every paper, because I tried to also have a life, but I also, so don't tell anyone. It's out there, I guess, now to the world. So now they're going to examine the content. Let's look around. If we look at this, it says civil rights, Jews and civil rights. That's weird. Why would they say Jews? But my students are in 8th grade. Some of them are Jewish, so they might go, why does that say Jews? But others are like, I don't care, they're rap lyrics. So they're examining the content, they keep going. Next page says this. Kids still waiting for the rap lyrics. But right here it says communist ideology. Why are they talking about communist ideology with Martin Luther King Jr.? This one says his brazen cheating, somewhere down here. Brazen cheating. I remember reading these papers, and I remember some of them say, well, he cheated, but that's okay, because, and I was like, where are they getting this? Because I didn't look. So if my students were smart enough, by the time they got to examine the content, they might be asking questions with their 8th graders, they might not be. So let's go to ask about the author. To ask about the author, you need to go into whois.com. You go to whois.com and you put in the URL for that site. It'll tell you Stormfront.org owns this. Great. Stormfront.org. Who's Stormfront.org? Let me look, because I have to ask about the author and tell my teacher who it is, and that's not gonna, she won't do that, accept that. Oh, Stormfront is a white nationalist community that Miss Clark let me turn in my paper for 3 years before she got smart. I ruined kids' lives early on. Some of them could be like, thankfully, they could be teachers by now, for sure. So this is when my students would say, okay, I can't use this site. So going through REA, they got to A and for sure they stopped. And if they don't know what white nationalist is, they've looked it up by now. But on the Wikipedia, it tells you exactly what it is. So if we went on for just for fun to see look at the links are. Look at the links. The links to David Duke. This site I let my students turn in for so long. Because I was just letting kids go into the lab. I didn't know any better. I was just learning digital literacy myself. And they use this all the time. Now that we do REAL, so many sites don't get through. So you can look at Alan November's book. You have this presentation. If you are in charge of this at your school in any way, shape, or form, you should be having kids run through REAL for anything that you do. And I just have that Google form, and if they can press submit, they can use it. And trust me, they'll figure it out and they'll stop right away. We all know about this site, right? Everyone's learned about the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. So I know my students have heard about it, but here's what I did. And I love this. I did this in Chicago again. So the Northwest tree octopus, obviously to us, we go tree octopus and one eyebrow goes up and we start to look at the site. We know that this is not a real site. And my students might even know. But in order to talk about literacy, that's not just digital, I come to class with a t-shirt that says, "Save the Northwest tree octopus." And I walk in and they're like, "Miss Clark, what is that, the Northwest tree octopus?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm running a race this weekend to help save the Northwest tree octopus. My parents live in the Northwest in Portland, Oregon. And when I was a kid, we had these tree octopus in our Christmas trees, and I'm just so fond of them." They're like, "Oh, well, can we run the race too?" And I'm like, "Yeah, go home and ask your parents about the Northwest tree octopus and see what they say." And they come back the next day, "Oh, we can do it. My mom likes the Northwest tree octopus too." And I'm like, okay, so your parents aren't having anything to do with this. So if you look at this site, because I've set it up as a person, my kids will go to these next sightings. And instead of going, "Oh my God, that's so fake," you know what they do? "Miss Clark, did you know there's a blue one? Look at this one. This is like that one looks like a space one. Did you ever see one like that? These are obviously fake, right? This is a Chuck E. Cheese, that thing you get with the claw, for sure, that someone has placed in a tree. But because I came in and told them that this was something near and dear to my heart, they all bought in. So I have a talk with them at that point about literacy not only being digital, but being listening to people's stories and really asking questions. Could that be true? Because you could be in a classroom in Iraq and maybe hear that the Holocaust didn't happen. Although I have recently rode in a car ride for 4 hours with an Iraqi who said that's not true, that's not what they think. So I don't want to keep that same stereotype. Anyway, so we're going to try something now. We're going to go on to Google and learn a couple tips that students should be doing. So if you'll join me, let's say we want to do the Chicago fire. So we're going to do, I'll let you meet me there. You may have already know this, but I'm going to go to, and my internet's really slow. I'm going to go to search tools, and I can do a custom range, and I can put in here from 1871 to 1872. And I'm going to get back stuff that was written in that time period. First-hand accounts, kind of. Really, not really first-hand because it's a reporter telling what someone said, or whatever. But I can also do something really great for my students. If I go to more, let me get out of the search tools. Actually, what is happening? Okay, hold on. I'm going to go out of this to Chicago Fire. Doing some really weird results for me right now. So, how many of you have seen the results when you do something that'll give you reading level? Have you ever seen that? Huh? Oh my gosh. Why did they take it away? They just thought that it couldn't be. They've taken away a ton of stuff. Did they take away colors too? Okay. Why take it out though? Interesting. So what I was going to show you guys is that and I have been traveling, so I haven't checked it, and I haven't read the blog, sorry. I was going to show you that if you're doing the Chicago Fire, you could do it by reading level, which was so awesome. I used to use it all the time. Gone. One of the So we'll go back. What's going on? I was going to show you that. Okay. So one of the things that most people are aware of at this point, but I just want to make sure that we don't gloss over, is this idea of the create a custom search engine. How many of you teach little children, like little guys? Only one person. Well, for any of you who have friends. So I was teaching these teachers in New York State, and they had just gotten one-to-one iPads, and I came to their school like once a month to help them. And one of the teachers came up to me and said, because I taught them about digital searching and having the vocabulary, and one of them came in and she's like, well, what happens when this happens? Like, she had caught me. She goes, one of my students wanted to do a report on pit bulls. And then when they did the report on pit bulls, you should have seen what came up. And I went, okay, wait a minute now. We need some teaching literacy. If a third grader says they're going to do a report on pit bulls, what makes you say, okay, go out on the web and just hope you'll find pit bulls? Because what came up were pit bulls eating babies and pit bulls with blood everywhere. And so I said you should have done a custom search engine. If you create a custom search engine, and all you have to do is Google custom search engine, and it'll come right up. You can whitelist whatever sites you want. So if it were going to be about pit bulls, you could go find just the good pit bull site, tell the kid to go to this, and it would just bring up the okay sites, because kids like pit bulls. That's okay with me personally. I like dogs. So this is a way for kids to be able to do something they like without you having to worry that that's going to bring really bad results. A student might want to do something on beaches. Do you know what comes up in images when they do beaches? So, custom search engine. But more importantly, I think for the digital literacy of 2015 is this next thing. And I don't know.
Like that, just generate a unique URL that you can provide to the student, and they're going to go there.
Yeah. Is this idea of the filter bubble. So I realized about this filter bubble when I don't know what's happening. Okay, there we go. I was doing something in South Korea, my first international trip with the team that I work with, the people that put this on. And I was in South Korea, and my Google came up, and all of a sudden was like, Google South Korea. And I was like, oh, this is cool, because I'm first time traveling there. But then I did some searches on certain things, and I got totally weird results on bottled water. I was doing something on bottled water and I don't even know why. And the whole thing was like, bottled water is bad for you. You shouldn't be drinking bottled water. And I'd never seen these reports before. But Google knew where I was sitting and knew that in South Korea, they were trying to do away with some thing that was happening with bottled water. And so it was feeding me different results. And I was like, whoa. And then I went incognito into my incognito window and did the same search. None of that stuff was there. That was really weird. So then I found out, and I should